That's. Josh, can we get started?
Oh, goodness.
Josh? Hey, Josh, we need to get started.
I can't whistle.
He's got a...
We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Time to get to work.
Yeah. We don't mean to interrupt you. You got to schmooze.
Yeah. This new board member.
Oh, yeah. David?
I think he said he couldn't be here tonight. I got an email.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the normal monthly business meeting of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District. Let the record show that all directors are here except for Director Skirvin, who had to be out of the country at this time, so he's unable to make it to tonight's meeting. Do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda minus the financial report for April?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
That's all we have, right?
Yes.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is accepted. To start off with, comments from citizens on agenda and non-agenda items. Let's see.
Is it Mark?
Oh,
Oh my
I'm sorry.
gosh.
Mark.
I'm like, well, who's
I'm
talking?
I'm trying to think who that is. Mark Christie. Okay.
It's really bad.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yay. Cool. Yeah.
All right.
But I said you can't quite do it yet.
I should have shoes on, but I'm still on Hawaiian time.
Wow.
Anyway, Mark Christie, 3184 Northeast Loop Drive. Just reporting DNLA, Devils Lake Neighborhood Association information. Fireworks, you'll see a copy of posters that'll go up around. This was a collaboration with Ed from Lincoln City Visitors Bureau and Miles. Kind of got this put together. They wanted to kind of chat about what was going on in the Lincoln City area. So I think there's a parade on there, our fireworks, and then the July 4th fireworks. So we're excited about the possibility of working closer together with our city friends. So.
Yeah, it's a great first step.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So we'll get those up and around, and that's going to be exciting. So fireworks parade, boat parade, and fireworks on July 3rd. We also have a fundraiser for the fireworks. We're always looking to raise money. This year's event will cost the neighborhood association approximately $12,500 to put on. We've kind of upped it from last year. We've got a few more exciting firework things that go off. I don't know that much about them, but I know the last
The bully
three.
in charge, so bigger is better.
Yeah, bigger is better. So there is a fundraiser which will be on Memorial Day weekend, which is Saturday, May 27th. Steve and Nancy Brown have graciously offered their location, their dock, and I think Bill's going to help out. We'll bring our barge out there, and folks can stop by in their boats and watercrafts and however, and have a hot dog and some refreshments, and we'll look forward to some contributions and make this July 3rd another fantastic event. So you can come by car also. So thank you. Anyway, thanks very much. That's our update for the Neighborhood Association.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Miles Schlesinger.
Miles Schlesinger, Lincoln City, Oregon. I wanted to remind the board and all the visitors, and there aren't any, that the 18th, a week from tonight, is the spaghetti feed, and I think it's a good time to show Lincoln City that we are on board with the day camp program that they have, which benefits all of Lincoln City for day campers.
At Benaya Breath. At Benaya Breath.
And it's at the camp.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miles.
Miles. Kathy Kramer?
Hi, Kathy Kramer, 3152 Northeast Loop Drive, Otis, Oregon. I just wanted to thank the board for awarding Mary Ellen and I the Stewardship Award. It was a complete surprise. The Community Days banquet was really wonderful, and I think I can speak for Mary Ellen that we all really enjoyed it. So thank
That
you.
was fun.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yes. All right, unfinished business. Sewer and Septic Inspection Committee briefings.
I'm looking around.
Okay,
Brian?
let me pass out what I hope, well, is the final version.
Is this different than this one?
Is it different than the one?
Letter.
Oh, this is the letter. This is the overview. Okay, thank you.
Actually, I got there's another draft of the overview.
Okay.
What I'm
Okay.
giving you now is the letter and the survey card that go out first. And then the overview. The overview has a couple little changes from what you got before, but I want to make sure you get the final draft here.
Right.
Let's put that whole overview away.
Okay, thank you.
There you go, Bill.
This is the old one?
I got printed, the overview got printed on both
Oh,
sides.
okay.
Okay, so the story behind this is that the letter was approved last meeting, subject to, or 2 meetings ago, I think, subject to that we set a date for or dates for meetings and workshops, and put the dates in the letter. And as I was thinking through that and trying to do it, it seemed like it's a little bit difficult to do more than one meeting date. It seemed like we could do the second meeting date at at the end of the first meeting, but we could set a couple if you think that that's a better idea. And the letter has been, so if you look at the letter that I just handed out, there's in the second to last paragraph, there's a blank for a date for the workshop, and as soon as we can figure that out, where we're going to do it and when we're going to do it, we'll put that in before we send the letter out. Okay? So that's taken care of. Then the next item was that we want to post the overview online, and so I wanted to mention that in the letter, so that the idea being hopefully the people that come to hopefully everyone will read it, but especially the folks that are interested enough to come to the community meetings will have read it, and we'll have better focus and better discussion, I think, if they have. So that's that, and then So what I need from you folks, if you approve first the letter, is maybe some authorization for printing and mailing. There's some cost involved there. I don't think very much, but I know you can. So I guess the first question is, are we still on board with this being the final draft of the letter?
Can I have just a couple little comments?
Sure.
I think it would be nice to have 2 dates, just because I know with people's busy lifestyles, if they only see one date on there and they can't make it, they may panic.
Okay.
Okay,
I see.
And then the only other thing, and this is a silly thing, but instead of please fill out this card and mail it back within 10 days, put a date there. Put it back by, mail it back by June 1st, because then that is etched in their head of, I've got to get that back, instead of 10 days is arbitrary.
Yeah, no, I like it. So make it, I don't know, 14 days. From
Sure,
the date
whatever
of the letter.
day we mail it out, give them 10 days, 2 weeks to mail it back, whatever that date is. But other than that, I like this a lot.
Good suggestion. Okay, so 10 days. And 2 dates. Okay. Anything else?
It hasn't changed substantially, and I think it's fine to go out the way it is. Everybody would write things differently, of course, as we've talked about, but I think it gets the point across, and we can move forward with this letter in essence.
I like the way that it is written to perk more interest, and that we all need more information, and could sewer help a little, help Devil's Lake, and I like that, because I think it'll encourage people to come together to start the conversation better than us saying, here's what you need.
Yeah, I think the purpose that the committee had in drafting the letter was just to get the process started, tell people, these rumors you're hearing, we're actually trying to do something, but to build trust with, by assuring property owners that they're going to be included in a collaborative and joint effort. And, to point out from the very beginning, they're going to have the final say
Right.
as to whether, this happens or not. So they know that their participation is not only requested but required, and they will ultimately decide. And it's a big decision. So, that's the whole, the letter's not real heavy on facts and information, but the overview is. And so
I was in Senator Roblin's office yesterday, and when he found out I was from Lincoln City, he's like, oh, boy. And anyhow, he brought up the Rhodes End situation, and he's heard about this. And he said, whatever you do, don't hold water hostage, or, So it was interesting that our reputation precedes us. And
No,
so I
hold
want
it.
to make sure that we, that it is a very inclusive project, and that people know that ultimately this is up to them.
Sure. And if this letter doesn't get that across, I don't know what.
I think it does a good job at that.
The other thing, Brian, do you have an idea of what your outline is going to be for a meeting for that meeting,
For the workshop?
for the workshop?
What the outline is going to be.
What are you going to cover in it? That would be, is it going to be basically a sharing of history of what the committee has done, or what needs to be done to go forward?
That's our agenda, in fact, for tomorrow afternoon sewer committee meeting, is to prepare for that. I think the starting point will be, we have our timeline of 105 steps,
Right.
and we have the overview. And I think, we're going to have to talk about the financial options. They're pretty general right now, but and we want to explore all of them, obviously for the purpose of making this expensive project as inexpensive as possible. So, there'll have to be a lot about that. But
And the other question I had was, what are you looking at specific dates? Do you have those, or is that work?
We have some dates in mind.
We have some dates in mind. Is this going to be
just generally, I'm thinking if we're going to do 2 days, we probably should have one in July and one in August. That would, wouldn't have most people down here.
Okay.
Should be a Saturday, I would think. Wouldn't you?
I would agree. I just didn't know if you were looking at June or, how soon we were going to try to pull this together. But July and August sounds pretty good because that gives us some lead time and to be able to get the message out. People are planning.
And Josh, I wonder if you could give the college a call or walk down the hall and see maybe if they have any Saturdays that wouldn't be available. Although I don't know if the biggest space at the college is room 108, right? Where we've had. Is that going to be enough? That can be big enough?
I actually just spoke with Tanya, that's the admin there, the other day, and she mentioned that if 108 is not available for whatever reason, because this came up for one of the meetings I have scheduled, the classrooms upstairs are also available. They have a lot of the same technology, too, if it's necessary to have a PowerPoint or anything like that. So
I think if you take the tables out of 108, you can get quite a few people in there.
Yeah, I think 108's the biggest room.
Is it the biggest?
But yeah, it's hard to know, how many people we can
the only bigger venue I can think of would be the community center. Has that big room, this bigger room.
Or the cultural center.
Yeah, the cultural center. That could be too.
Potentially, there are probably 800 or 900 people that would be affected financially by this. So, you might think, okay, we'd get a third of them, maybe half of them. It's possible. So, maybe we should. Well, let's do this. Let's check out the largest venue first. I think that'd probably be the community center.
I think it'd be the cultural center.
The cultural center is.
If you think it's going to be that big, you could do a casino.
You have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Cultural center costs too.
Yeah, but isn't it like $50 or something?
I'm not sure what the price
Pretty
is.
expensive.
Don't you know somebody that's on that board?
Yeah, I do. All right, so why don't we find out? We can find out what their seating capacities are, and we'll just start with the biggest one.
Right.
And try to schedule with that. If that doesn't work, then we'll just go down the line till we get and we'll keep the casino in mind too. That's I don't know does the casino charge anything? Don't they want people just to show up and maybe?
No, they
nickels
charge,
on the
and I
slot
think you
machine?
have to. You have to do a food guarantee, I believe.
Oh my God. Okay.
I think the cultural center. The initial meeting might not draw that many people, but as we go forward, as things go forward, then probably more people will be engaged. I would assume.
Okay. So we need to post the overview before the letter goes out. Obviously, we're telling people, go to our project's website, and so the overview needs to be there. I don't know, is that something that we need Jimmy's help to do, or is it?
No, since we have that existing section already on the website, I should be able to work it in there. So
Okay.
Just let me know exactly which documents you want in and put up.
Well, yes, and speaking of that, we can talk about, positioning and stuff, but I was looking at that today, and this thing's going to go out to a lot of people who are presumably going to look at the projects page, and I think the projects page in almost every piece of subject matter is way out of date. I mean, not your fault, not pointing fingers or anything, but it just is.
Yeah.
And we need to do, I think maybe each of our committees might look at updating, their subject matter on the projects page. I mean, I'm happy, for instance, a good example is the Voyage Lake LID, which I'd probably be the most responsible person for that, the content of that, and that hasn't been, it still shows it as an ongoing project, not that it's been completed. It's I think the last entry was 2013, and I had just never assumed I was the responsible party, but I'm happy to do it. In fact, I'd like to do it, and I will do it. But that's what I mean. It'd be something that the sewer committee, I guess, could do for that portion of the projects page, and then the other items could be updated by the appropriate committee, and I would think that they'd want to do that. I mean, it's a primary outlet for information to the public for what the committees are doing, I think.
Yeah, maybe we could make it a goal over the next month to have each of the committees put together an update on what's taking place, and I'll make that a priority for our committee too. Because as we enter toward the end of this month, more and more people, and you're probably going to inform us about how many people are accessing our website, but that will become more and more of a vehicle. I know that last year we had a lot of phone calls and stuff, and so.
Yeah, it doesn't look like any of this stuff has been updated since like 2013, 2014.
Yeah, that's what I found.
I planned on contacting Jim Dewey because it's came to my attention that a few sections need updated. We're a little redundant as far as the recent board meetings versus the past meeting section, and a couple things that are just going to take his skills and expertise to get through efficiently. So I'll wait until after you all have the conversations on the committee level to set that meeting up with him.
Great.
Right.
So, and what about there's no signatures on the overview. It'll be on our website. So is that enough of identification?
I don't think you need signatures on the overview.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, the other materials don't, but I wanted to see if you wanted like the sewer committee or the board or both. If so, all right.
I think we're fine with that the way it is.
It's on our website. I mean, it's identified to us, and I think you're right. But I wanted to bring it up.
And just to clarify, your sewer committee has all read and approved this version.
Yes, they have. Well, precisely what's happened is I added that paragraph in italics.
Right.
And I sent it out 2 days ago. And I got a comment back from Mitch Moore saying he thought it was fine. He pointed out a typo that I fixed, and I got no objections or criticisms or suggestions for not including it from the other ones. Miles, are you okay with it? Okay, well, that's 3 of the 6.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question I had was, when do we want to send out the letter, and what vehicles do we want to use for that? What was the committee's thoughts?
Well, we want to get the letter out, I think, as soon as possible. It has a May blank date on it. So I think we've got to nail down the dates for the 2 sessions, and we have to, and the location. I have a location in there, but we don't know that that's where it's going to be. So we have to nail those 2 things down, and we have to get the overview up so that people get the letter, and they would go to to the projects page, the overview is there to review, and then we can send the letter out. And I can have I really don't want to print it until I know the date that we're going to be able to send it out.
So are we under any obligation to notify the public about things that we're intending to do, like sending this letter out?
I don't think
Well,
so.
that's what we're doing right now. We're in a public meeting.
Well, do we give the public a chance to go over this before they are obligated to sign it?
Well, we're signing it as the DLWID board and the sewer committee.
They have no chance to voice their opinion prior to getting the letter?
What do you mean as to the content of
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Well, no, it's just like it's communication for us, and we're inviting their comment.
Right, I think this is just to allow them the opportunity to come to a meeting and find out what's going on and lay out what's happened and where we're headed, and then we can, that's the feedback that we hope to get, I think, at that time.
Okay.
So are we looking at trying to get this out in the next 2 weeks? Is that it? Sometime before the end of the month?
That would be as soon as possible. Is my
I mean, you
goal.
should be able to find out availability of those rooms tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll just make the calls for the cultural center and the community college and see where we're at.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Right, we're headed down the path. And
Then we'll find if we need help with Jimmy, or are you saying you have no problem getting the overview up on?
No, I can go ahead and get that up in the morning. I can put that to the website and get it under the sewer section. I was talking more about some of the larger updates as far as updating the bulk of the information in there and making it easier to find. We'll definitely need Jimmy to work on that.
Okay, well, I'll get on rewriting the Voyage LID, and there's two sections on the sewer. There's one for sewer dash Devil's Lake, and there's one Voyage Lake LID, sewer LID, and I think the overview pretty much becomes the sewer, the Devil's Lake sewer page, and I'll rewrite the LID.
Well, we can even put
They're updated.
stuff on our front page too, can't we?
Yeah, I've been running most things as a blog post, and there are 4 of them that come up by
Right.
date. So important things like our budget committee meeting and executive sessions and things within the next 30 to 60
I would
days.
think the more front and center you could put this, so when people go to look for it, there's a link right on the front page to
That's
get
right
to
there.
it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
sounds good.
Okay.
I think that does it for me.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Good work.
Special projects and events communication. Mark, you here for that group?
Yep, thanks. I did have an opportunity to watch the last board meeting. Bill did a great job recapping our meeting. I think he shared with you our next meeting date will be 3:30 at the community college prior to the next board meeting in June. So that'll be our next meeting. What I did want to suggest with respect to the website, my recommendation would be to make it as simple as possible, but on the committee's link, have a link, a drop down on the committee's page for each committee, and then have on that page, like I know we provide the board and Josh our agenda for the upcoming meeting, and then our meeting minutes following that. All I would ask is that information be posted in chronological order, so someone could go on, if they wanted to check out our committee, click on our meeting minutes, click on the agendas, kind of like we do in our on the board meetings, and that way it'd be really simple. Doesn't take a lot, I would think, to do once it gets set up. That's easier said than done.
Right.
I know that. So no, Josh,
I've got
I'm
notes.
giving you a bad time. but I just think the simpler we can make it, the easier. So
The city has a good format.
do they?
Yeah, you go to their meetings page and city council, and they have a drop down every meeting, and you
Right.
can look at agenda and minutes.
Yeah.
and
For
video.
me, I need it as simple as possible because then I can navigate it. But
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So,
So
That's pretty-
anyway, the other thing that I wanted to share with you, and I know there's a link on the Devils Lake Water Improvement District website to go to our DNLA website. It's now dlakeoregon.com. So if you go on there, you'll see on the first page, we've got noting the volunteer event that I'll talk about here in a minute that's coming up this upcoming Tuesday that's part of our committee. So we've got the I call it the East Devils Lake cleanup, but it's Devils Lake roadside cleanup. But it'll start this Tuesday at 9 o'clock. We'll meet at Faith Baptist and go out between 9 and noon and go ahead and pick up and canvas for garbage. So we'll get that, and I think Tina's company's graciously agreed to accept whatever garbage we picked up, so thank you very much for that.
We talked to Solve yesterday because we had another group request cleanup and disposal, and Solve will give bags to any group that wants to do a cleanup.
Yeah, I think we still have some bags left
Oh,
over,
terrific.
quite a few bags left over from our first event. And we kind of had that discussion, do we want to run this through Solve or do we want to do this a different way? So we had Susie and Julie contact the county. They were extremely excited about us participating and doing that for them. They don't have like our county in Washington County has actually a program that's developed for road pickup. You get somebody to adopt a road,
Adopt
so
a
to speak.
highway, yeah.
And I actually got that information from Washington County, provided it to Julie and Susie, and I think they passed that along to the county. So that's something the county might do in the future. I mean, it's a great way to really kind of police that area and have community involvement. But so we're excited about this. Actually, it was Kent's. Give credit where credit is due. Kent's idea to take a look at doing that, so we were very excited once we got into it to go ahead and take that on. So we'll give you a report on how that.
And that's 9 o'clock at Faith Baptist.
Faith Baptist, 9 o'clock on Tuesday. So we should have everything that anybody needs. So anybody that would love to participate, we'd love to have you there. You can, again, go to the website here or click on dlakeoregon.com and you'll see that information. The other thing is, as part of our July 3rd upcoming event, I had reached out to Barry Brewster, our deputy Marine Sheriff, who has graciously accepted our invitation to, I think, lead the parade. So I've got coffee with him tomorrow. We're going to kind of work on firming that up. And then boat safety is a very critical issue to us and the DNLA, too. So we're going to talk about that, how we can continue to improve on notification to let people know the proper way to go in the parade, following Barry, and then also to view the 4th of July event on the 3rd, and then how to depart from that safely afterwards. So that's kind of my update.
Right. Thank you. Save Our Shoreline, water quality monitoring. Did anybody? Okay. Thanks, Kathy.
Mary Ellen got waylaid by a tennis tournament today. So the only thing I really have as an update is we're going to start testing on the May 22nd. We'll be testing the water, and then we'll be doing it weekly after that until before Labor Day. So that's about it.
Thanks. I had one other thing that, as a board issue, is we've been contacted, and I've had one or two meetings with someone who's interested in our Save Our Shoreline program, and I've met with her once, both at my place and at her place. Today we missed each other a couple of times in hoping to update, but she's redoing her property. It's just south of Regatta Park, and wanted to apply for the funds for help with that. and she's taking basically a grass lawn and doing some landscaping with both some native and non-native plants and such. And as we looked at this, there was no real formal application on how we can distribute funds to help individuals out with these types of things. And so I guess I'm coming to the board saying, hey, how do we want to do this? We have somebody that wants to participate. Do we, as a committee or as myself, as part of the SOS committee, go out and meet with these individuals and discuss their projects, try to work them through this, and then how do we distribute funds and agree that, hey, this is a worthwhile project?
I thought we did have an SOS application.
Yeah, I thought we did too.
I think Josh has looked, and
Yeah, I haven't found it readily available. I can dig through some hard files and see if it's maybe in there, but I haven't found a digital copy yet.
Okay.
but I know that she's going forward, and I guess my question is that if we decide her project's worthy of financial help from the board, can she go ahead, and her question was, can she go ahead and go forward, do the things, and then apply for funds, or can we?
Well, yeah, this says that you will be reimbursed $750. And in addition, DLWID will source the plants, recruit volunteer labor, and work with you to develop the site design.
Right. But how do you?
That's the program, but
That's
where's
the program.
application?
Yeah, how do we say, hey, this is a worthy project?
Yeah.
And is it just fine? Oh yeah, I show up and say,
Yeah,
oh
it
yeah,
looks
that,
good.
that looks good. No, that's not what we really want to do.
Right.
And so I know she's written me an extensive list of what she was going to do. I was trying to get together with her today, and that our schedules just didn't mesh. But we do have an individual out there, and we want to encourage these things, and we also want to help them financially if we can do that.
Do we not encourage native versus non-native plantings? And you mentioned that she is native and non-native.
Right.
So
She's
I'm
done
no botanist, so or limnologist, so I wouldn't know if there's bad. Well, like Eurasian milfoil, there's a bad non-native, but I doubt she's going to plant Eurasian milk. But
Well, I know that she's met with the people at Bear Valley and got some input from them. She's looking at planting all deep-rooted plants in her landscape. She's really cutting way back on her grass. It's really going to benefit. It's similar to, I showed her our project and what we had done. But it's on a different scale than that. But I want to be able to be encouraging, and if we can help her, I think this would be a good way to do it. And how do we be able to approve those funds, I guess?
Well, I would say we need to develop an application and then have some sort of a template for the plan, like what kind of species do you propose you're going to use, and so on and so forth, and have that, be attached.
Right.
And then go from there. I'm just looking to see if there are other lakes that have similar applications that we could kind of boilerplate.
Yeah,
Which I'm sure there are. But
And I'm very familiar with native plants and what we
Right.
could plant, and some even non-native ones that I think would still be workable for what the goals that we're trying to achieve, which is to get plant growth in the shoreline area instead of grass right up to the shoreline. And so I think any way we can do it to encourage this, and this is the first one in the last few years that we've had somebody approach us.
it's
and
exciting.
I'd really like to be able to help her
Do
out.
we have a handbook or a guidebook?
We do,
but there's no application in it.
but we don't have an application.
Tina, let me take another good hard look at the hard files and see if I come up with anything. And if I don't, I'll get something together for you next week as a board to take a look at so we can get something in. Because in addition to this, I just received another email today of another resident on the lake who would like to pursue a SOS project. So I think we're going to
Yeah,
really
we
get
need to
rolling
get on
with
it.
this. So.
Well, and I'd like to be able to say to her, hey, go ahead and go forward on what you're doing, and we can put together whatever needs to happen and apply for funds in the rears, so
Sure.
to speak.
I mean,
And
yeah,
so,
we want to encourage it, that's for sure.
right. And she wants to do what's right, and that's what we're wanting to encourage.
That's great.
And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, if it reads reimbursement, that's kind of payment after the fact, correct? You're being reimbursed for something that someone has already paid for, or someone's already
Okay.
put out funds for.
Submit
Okay.
invoices or something.
Yeah,
All right.
just to cover it. And then we'll get a formal application going as well.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good. All right. Anything else from that? Any other committees? Okay, projects, updates. I guess this is up to Josh.
Yay! The Devil's Lake Sediment Removal Project, we talked about using the Airstream and some alternative technologies to see what we can do as far as moving some of the more flocculent materials around and trying to expose our actual native sandy lake bottom. We've had really great luck with that up at Knowles. We can balance that out with the fact that we've had really good water clarity. When we put the unit in, we had about 4 to 5 feet of visibility. After running it for approximately 3 to 4 weeks, we're all the way to 9 feet of visibility. Like I said, we need to balance that with the fact that water clarity is good across the lake now because of the inputs. However, everyone who is familiar with that area has said that this is record good water clarity. So to move on to the sediment portion of evaluating that equipment, we're looking at moving it to a more sedimented in area, maybe Horseshoe Bay, something
great.
that, is historically terrible as far as the depth of that sediment is concerned.
And
taking
stinky.
And taking our preliminaries like we did at Knowles, but he didn't have quite as much of that flocculent material on the bottom. So we'll take it to where that is, and we'll try that out. Take the measurements and everything like we have been. It's funny, we were talking about the website as well. Rob has taken a couple of drone flyovers for us, and he's done a great job. I'm going to work those into the website as soon as I can get the time to put them up. But that will also help us, I think, in kind of judging as we go between time frames if anything's visually changing. So after we get our lake contractor established, May 20th is our deadline for that. We'll have a clearer picture of how we can get the assistance necessary to get that equipment moved around and how we can fund that as well. So that will be coming up this month.
Do you have the location for Horseshoe Bay? Do you have somebody that is willing to host it?
Yes. Pat Dooling has already offered at his
Great.
property, and he has a very safe location with a dock that's very secure
Good.
as an option. So we will tentatively plan on that once we run through the other things we have to take care of.
Great.
Josh, I might be behind the curve a little bit here, but when you say influencing, indicate the equipment is influencing the lighter sediments, what do you exactly mean? I mean, is that area deepening or?
Well, and that's what I'm talking about. It's a little subjective at the moment since our water clarity in the whole lake is better than it normally is this time of the year due to the extra water. The visibility wasn't really good enough when we started to know if that sediment was being influenced that much. I took a few other preliminary measurements both before, during, and after we ran the equipment, and there just wasn't quite as much of that really, really fluffy material up there in that exact location. I think we're really talking about when we refer to sediment. So that's why we're planning on moving it to another location afterwards. And the location it's at now worked beautifully with the water quality, the measurements we've taken, the photos we've taken, and basically getting a handle for the equipment, which was the primary purpose, is getting in a very safe location where it's going to have plenty of supervision, and Noel has done a great job at hosting us for that. So now that we really know the ins and outs of the equipment, how to keep it safe, where to place it, and how to secure it, now we can kind of look at some of these other areas to test some of these other hypotheses.
Are you saying that influencing the lighter sediments means increasing clarity?
No. Influence, it can deeper down because some of those flocculent sediments, of course, are suspended in the water column, so they're going to be turbid, and you're not really going to be able to see through them, especially when we're talking in some of these areas of not just inches but feet of this material. So they do kind of correlate a bit together as far as clarity and the lighter sediments are concerned, but for the purpose of the actual movement of the sediment, that will be what we're looking at on this next move.
I think when he means lighter, he means fluffier.
Yeah.
More liquefied.
Yeah, the flocculent materials that everyone's been talking about, near the edge of the lake.
Well, how is it influenced?
What are we looking for?
Yeah.
We're looking
What's
at,
the difference between what it was like before and after?
with the sediment or with the
Yeah.
clarity?
Well, what's the influence?
The clarity has been the influence so far. That's what I mean.
But we've moved the sediment or dispersed it.
It has, if there was any there, it has dispersed, and the water clarity has improved, and it is no longer there that we can see at the moment. So we will also see, as we move that equipment and we move it out of that location, there's been some concerns as to, well, it's just moving it out of the way, or it's just putting it here or putting it there. The lake has current, so that sediment will move back around rather quickly if it has just been pushed around and not dissipated very far. So we will know after we move that equipment and it's not running in that location for a few weeks, we'll continue evaluating it to see if that sediment in fact returns or if this is going to be a longer-term, more appreciable benefit from the equipment.
In your canal, Bill, did it return when you stopped running your little one?
Still hasn't. No, I've still got 6 feet of water depth.
Wow.
And see visible results of what it did while it was there. So it's not like the trench that it relocated, the material hasn't filled up with any material.
Wow.
So I'm pretty happy that it's not just blowing it out and then floating back or
Sure.
drifting back. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that the benefit of all this rain, we've had about 84 inches since October 1st, it seems, is that all? Yeah, at my house. I think the overall clarity of the entire lake, I mean, people who've lived on the lake and been here and used it for all these years, I think almost without exception, people are saying that this is the clearest the lake has ever been. And so it's hard to see what an aeration project or little experiment would do and associate it with water clarity, because I think it's just a matter of, hey, we've got a lot of rain.
But you can...
And last year, we put the boards in the dam as soon as we could, April 15th. We still haven't done that. I checked, I think water depth at my dock was about 9.8 the other day, and we had almost an inch of rain today, so I don't know what it's going to be. But it's been hovering around in that upper 9s to low 10s for quite a period of time, and here we are almost mid-May. And so, yeah, a lot of water.
Are you doing sediment depth tests?
I did an initial lake bottom one out at Knowles at the marina, and like I said, there was just not that much of that really fluffy material to pick up on measure, and that's really going to be the focus with discussions.
So like at Horseshoe Bay, you'll get a significantly...
Yeah, where it's historically bad, even now with the record water, where the canals are full of that goo and muck, and just see what we can do with the equipment at that point.
I have a question off topic of that, but referring to that area, I call it the beaver cage. I don't know what it's really called.
Beaver deceiver.
Beaver deceiver on the other side of the canal there. Did we take that out because it was so messed up? The county took it out?
Mm-hmm. They took it out and replaced it. They put it back.
They did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's back in there.
Okay.
Our last big water event last month, they took it out because it was backed up far enough to where the water was just about going over the road.
Over the road.
Mm-hmm.
So they just pulled it out.
Right.
And cleaned it and put it back in.
Put it back in.
Okay. Because it was out for quite a while. And I was like, are we going to put that back in? So the county takes care of that? We don't take care of that?
Right.
Okay. That's all.
All right. Next up, the student intern coordination progress. I've been in talks with staff at Oregon Coast Community College. The biology professor I've been speaking with, Matt Fisher at the Newport campus, had a STEM group meeting this week in which he was going to speak to his other members and see about student involvement at this point. And I expressed to him that we are more than ready to take on at least one intern at 20 hours a week to start with our sampling program. So ASAP on that. I'll follow up with him tomorrow or early next week and get that moving as quickly as we can, if that's going to be a possibility for us.
Right.
Website usage, unfortunately, I couldn't get the report to generate for some reason today. However, I did look at it yesterday. The numbers were pretty consistent with last month, so we really haven't dropped a lot and we really haven't gained a lot. So.
Can you remind us of what that is? What that was as far as the usage? It was up, I know, it was substantially from before, but I can't
we were
remember
up,
what.
I think, over 30%. From last year, maybe even a little bit higher than that at the same time. So that being a good contrast between when the old website was up and the new website is up. So there's obviously been a lot of interest, people hearing about our new website, I'm sure, and that's generated a fair amount of hits. But those numbers seem to be holding. Like I said, there weren't a sharp increase or decrease these past months to months as the website has been live. But I can only guess, like we've talked here, that the more information we get, the more useful and the more easily navigated that website becomes, that we can most likely expect that those numbers to keep increasing and that website to be a great tool for us to be able to get this information out to the public so we can continue this open forum.
Right.
Let's see. Anything else on those projects? I did have something under new business, Josh. I know that you sent information to each of the board members on our grant application for our water quality probe, and if you could report on that to us as a group and the community. And then we also need to talk about, since that was discussed in earlier meetings, about purchasing a new water quality probe, what that means and how we should go about that. I think that needs to be a point of discussion.
Sure, no problem. The Siletz tribe has granted us $2,700 to cover the total cost of the handheld unit of the probe, which is great. I'm very thankful for that. It's going to be an extremely useful piece of equipment and a generous donation on their part to help us out with that. It does, however, leave us about $18,000 on the rest of that equipment if we do, in fact, want to have the full array of equipment that we've discussed. I believe I sent out a while back some information with a few different options as far as the way we could configure it if we want to and price-wise. But the fact is that outfitted the way we had initially, that's a big price point, but it's a very key piece of equipment. I think it's going to be very important for us to have, not just in the near term, but as conditions in the lake change over the years. The lifespan of this equipment is most likely 10 years or more, depending on how long the sensors and everything last. But that's generally where they put it for that. So for quite a while, this is going to be a very important piece of equipment. So even if you look at the cost over a course of 10 years, you're only talking a couple $1,000s a year for something that is going to be central to a lot of the decisions that are made here. So I think that's very important to consider. There is the availability of funds this year to be able to cover it under our budget, our current budget that we're working under, because Salmon Drift Creek was not approved on their second grant, and that was approximately $20,000 we had committed in our budget. So given if that's a fish and wildlife application, and that will be a key component to monitoring their health and well-being as well as human health and well-being on the lake, that could fit into that category and cover the complete rest of the fund of the full equipment if we choose so.
Well, I guess what I'm looking for you from you, Josh, is to what extent should we, if we decide to go forward and purchase this piece of equipment, here we've got $2,700 of that from the tribe. Thank them very much. But we also can purchase some different set portions of that at different times. What would be essential for us to spend now? And then I know that The tribe also has some other funds available and coming up for grants that we might be able to add to that over time too. Is that correct?
That is correct. They donate to a wide range of causes and applications within those causes. And I do believe that we can make another grant application to them to cover some of our normal recurring expenses that are directly related to the quality of the lake water, things such as our sampling bottles and equipment. For example, I'm getting ready to reorder now, and I spoke with Mary and Kathy about what we need as far as bottles and all of that to be prepared for the sampling season, and just one E. coli quantity tray is $24 now. So that's 24 times 13 times 16, just for that one. Now we have at least 2 or 3 other types of bottles and samples and collection units that we'll need to purchase as well. So the district spends slightly under $20,000, I believe, is normally budgeted just for those. Like I said, the tribe is very generous, and they're very concerned about the general health and safety and beautification of the area, so I think that they would definitely be open to helping us with some of those expenses as well. Does that answer your question?
Well, at this time, would your recommendation be then to go ahead and purchase all the different parts of that unit and spend the almost $20,000 that, and we do have the money that could be moved from one area to another because of the lack of the grant funding on behalf of Salmon Drift Creek Watershed Council.
There are a couple of things that aren't completely necessary. Once again, we won't have the data until we start collecting it. We will have the instrument, of course, to put the sensors into, which is more than half the battle there. But for example, the algae sensor alone is approximately $3,500 just for that one sensor. There's a couple of other ones that we could take a measurement with a Seishi disc. It'll be a little more relative because it's a visual indicator, of course, to manual piece of equipment such as turbidity. I think in the email I described a couple different configurations, but without really compromising the value of the equipment very much, and still getting a great benefit, of course, out of having the sensors we could reduce that investment on our part by $6,000 or more, I think, if we wanted to, and then still be able to collect a good 5 to 6 parameters of the core decision-making values that we're looking at, such as nitrates and salinity and these recommendations we've had through the studies through the years.
And then so in the future, then we could just add on the components if we chose to do so.
Correct. We can call, and that's part of the great part of this equipment is modular like that. I can call YSI and say we have an XO2 unit, we'd like a PC algae sensor, and they'll get it together, get it to us, and I can install it in the office. So it'll plug right in.
Is the algae sensor that you mentioned, will it differentiate blue-greens from other algae, or does it just give you a concentration of algae?
It's going to give you, it's called a PC sensor, I think, because they mean precursor, which means that it basically measures a couple of different parameters that generally are conducive to an algal bloom. So it won't definitely detect a blue-green versus a green algae, or harmful versus not so harmful algae, but it essentially is an early warning indicator that conditions are right for that algae, and even if it's not visual, that there's some kind of content in there.
So what could we do if we had that early indicator? Is there something that we can do to prevent the bloom from occurring because we have the early indicator? I mean, is it useful to have that information?
Well, it'll be useful. It'll be more useful in the future as data were collected. If we have that sensor in use for 24 months, we'll be able to look back on that data, and maybe we did have a bloom, maybe we had problems around June of last year or so, and we can correlate that data with what was actually happening historically. In the near term, the greatest benefit I see out of having it, out of having that information in front of us at the time, would be that we can be a little more on alert that there's the potential for a larger bloom or the potential for something hazardous. So once again, we can get that information out to the public as quickly as possible if that situation were to occur.
Well, I think Brian, in last year when we did the monitoring, Elizabeth trained us to say, hey, we don't need to do this more expensive test for harmful algal blooms unless you see a preponderance of algae in the water. And I think the probe will, instead of us saying, making a visual look and say, hey, I think it's an algae bloom now, we should test. This probably will give us an indication of saying, hey, we don't need to test, or we do need to test.
I see.
And
Yeah.
so we made that by observation last year. I think we tested 3 times, and we did that the first time just to run the test. The next 2 times, we just wanted to make sure that we were on top of things in case something was happening. And in all 3 cases last year, it wasn't a harmful algal bloom. But it sounds like to me that from this probe that this will say, hey, there's an algae bloom in progress, you need to test further. I think that's the way I read it. Am I right, Josh?
Correct.
Okay.
So we've got a storyteller.
Right.
Exactly.
And so instead of visual observation, we've got a tool to use that's going to probably provide a greater reliability than just a visual test.
Correct.
Great. Well, I personally, I think that if this is a key component to our water quality monitoring, I think we should go ahead and buy what we need to, spend the funds that we have. We have them available. And it's too bad that Salmon Drift Creek didn't get their grant funding, because I think us supporting what they were going to do with replacing culverts was a good use of those funds. But in the case that hasn't happened, then we have the funds available. That I'd say let's go ahead and do it.
Well, especially with the projects we have going on, we have to have a lot of that data anyhow, which we rented one last year. So,
Yeah, and this can function as a data logger as well, so we could leave it out for extended periods in a housing if we want, not just our spot sampling from our sampling regime, but we want 30 days of data at Sandpoint or something like that, like was done last year. And it's very expensive to rent data loggers. I mean, to the tune of a few $1,000s for just a few weeks of data. So when you really do that, and then you take the ability of the district up a notch to be able to do that ourselves without on the spot, expenditures of a few $1,000s using our multi-useful equipment. I think it's a good investment.
Any other comments? So I move that we have Josh spend the money that's needed to get the data logger and up and running to whatever extent that the full extent as far as I'm concerned, and spend the funds that we have.
I second.
So the full okay. So now we're at discussion. So the full extent is about a $20,000 expenditure, right?
Minus the $2,700 that.
So 18,000,
Approximately 18 to us, yes. Yeah.
but
I'm just trying to
about
be clear.
21,000 total.
Yeah. And
I mean, it makes sense to me, because it seems like some of the information you get from one piece is going to complement information from another piece, and it's always good to have the whole picture versus pieces. So
I feel like this will give us the best picture we've ever had of what's going on, and that's what we need as we move forward. It's the best.
And with the
best picture
Airstream, being able to take simply to take some before and after things with that, and then if we move forward with aeration, being able to monitor that, I think it's a pretty important component of those two things.
I agree. And with a large aeration system along those lines, too, as soon as we get this in the water, the data we're collecting is going to add into that project.
Right.
So.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of spending those funds?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Josh? Get it here next week.
I will take care of it. No grass will grow under my tires.
Any other new business or non-agenda items from the board? Yes, Bill.
The dam stanchions are installed, ready for boards.
Those damn stanchions.
Dam stanchions are in.
So
Love dam jokes.
I think the previous meeting, we discussed that as soon as the water level dropped down to the 9.5 foot level, we'd go ahead and put in the boards. And I don't know if it's going to be this month or
In August.
Yeah, after it's done.
Are we ready to do that then?
We're ready.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good.
And can you talk a little bit about our executive committee meeting tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you reminded me. Tomorrow, John Tucci with Lake Savers, whom spoke at our SOS workshop a few weeks ago, has agreed to have a video conference Q&A session with the board and public, which I released and announced through a special session, to answer any questions we have about the comparison of what we know and what we've learned from our engineering and design plan to date, and what a more prefabricated solution with a track record like his would have to offer. So we can kind of compare those two scenarios as we move forward with how we want to aerate the lake.
And in our March meeting, April meeting, we talked about giving John Dr. Horn's information and vice versa. Did that information swap happen?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're going to talk with John a little bit tomorrow first. Tom Wood is also going to be present at that meeting as well, so we're going to hope to get a little bit more information as far as how we should approach that tomorrow. Because technically, well, not technically, I mean, he is, Dr. Horn and Laguna Science are at the end of their contract, so
Right.
we've essentially paid them for
We own
the
that material.
deliverables
Right.
that we have. So that's something we can approach tomorrow after we talk to John Tucci, I think.
Okay.
And is tomorrow an executive session or a special meeting?
Executive session.
So that would just be us.
Oh.
That would just be us.
Yeah, the public can't be there if it's
Right.
executive session.
Unless we put out.
Can we open it up once we call it to order? Can we invite the public in?
I think, yeah, you can do anything you want. You could just, it'd be nice, I mean, if we're going to do it, I think you ought to just give a notice of a special meeting right now. And,
Call it a special meeting instead of executive session?
yeah, I mean, I looked at that and thought it was odd to call it an executive session, but if it's relevant to negotiating, and it is, a contract with Tucci, then, it's an appropriate subject for executive
Right.
session. So I think you can do either one. And there's another issue, I mean, I don't, maybe it doesn't make any difference to Tucci whether it's, he has maybe more freedom in an executive session to talk, nuts and bolts and finances than, that's why you have executive sessions versus
Right.
special meetings. So, but I wouldn't see the harm in a special meeting. I really wouldn't. I don't think it's that big a deal. He's a pretty open guy. I mean, he just,
When you advertise the executive session, did you say public is welcome?
I believe I did.
I don't recall. I just recall I didn't read the fine print. But we can look it up. Yeah. It says public is...
well, so why don't you, let's put out a notice as soon as you can, saying that the notice basically, substantively, I'd call that a notice of a special meeting because you invited the public. So, and it's not a regular meeting. So,
Well, and
just amend it to say that it's a special meeting. It'd be held at.
and tomorrow we can invite if there's those
We're
that
going
are
to invite
attend-
them. We want to invite them tonight, or as soon as we.
This notice does not say the public is welcome. And the meeting announcements. Was there something else sent out?
I think that was it.
This says the Devils Lake Water Improvement District Board will be holding an executive session meeting per ORS blah, 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 10:15. Friday, May 12th, this meeting will be held at Oregon Coast Community College. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the whole lake aeration system.
Yep.
Was there something else sent out besides that?
I don't believe so. I think that's what I sent out.
So, Steve, what did you see that said the public was welcome? Okay. Yeah, tonight's meeting was shortly thereafter.
Yeah, Dave doesn't.
Yeah, Dave is setting up the, maybe that's what happened. I set out the executive session for this meeting, and I immediately went to Dave to try and get the video conference set up with John from Michigan, so he get him piped in. So he must, that email must have went out, the electronic invite meeting for dialing in and linking in must have went out to.
Oh.
Okay. That's
So
the
was that
confusion.
just to board members or potential board members, or did that go out to the public?
I think yeah, I think it just went out to board members and potential board members.
Okay. So you'd be fine either way.
Yeah.
So, Brian, do you want to leave it at executive session since it was advertised that way, or do you want to change it?
Why don't you do this, leave it as executive session, but if people show up that are not on the board, we can ask Tucci at the outset. I mean, I kind of assume the board members are comfortable letting the public hear what he has to say, and ask questions for that matter. And so if he's comfortable, we could just tell all the massive crowd outside the door.
Yeah. Sure, it's going to be down the street.
Yeah. So if you're interested in showing up, then show up, and I imagine Mr. Tucci will say, yeah, open the door, and let's open it up to the public.
Bring in the masses.
And since we're on the subject, the Budget Committee meeting is open to the public and was
Yes.
definitely advertised as such in the announcement.
And
that's here.
it will be
That
here.
is,
Real
that
good
is here,
idea.
correct. Yes. So,
I think somehow
At
last
noon?
at
I
noon.
think somehow last year, the budget committee meeting got confused or something. Something happened there. But
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
any other non-agenda items? Do we have any additional comments from those present?
Just a couple. One was, when I was talking to Barry today, he had mentioned, and I can't remember, I asked Noel about it, and I don't know if he asked Bill about it, but there was another dock that was found 6x4. It's tied off over at the condos. Different than the one I think that you had.
Still on
maybe.
my property.
It's still on your property. So if anybody is aware, from what Noel said, it was actually a pretty nice 6x4 dock, but someone tied it up over on one of the condos docks. So it's
At
there.
Key Lock condos? Where?
The
What
condos
condos?
next to Noel's. You know, if you're
gotcha.
looking
Yeah,
out
yeah,
to
yeah.
the right.
Yep.
So if anybody needs to do that, you can probably contact
You could
any
build
of
a
us.
nice dock between the one that's at my property and that one.
And one other thing, this goes back to Brian's comment on, one of the positive aspects of aeration and the near shore aerators that we're testing right now is the neighborhood association a couple of years ago spent money and did some core samples and found out that your average depth of the muck is somewhere in that 7 to 9 foot range. And what this aeration system will also do is take and most of it, 70% of it, 60-some% of it was water.
90% water, yeah.
What this aerator will do over time is eventually take that fluff, so to speak, and compact it down to more of a solid. So what we have the opportunity of doing is picking up, let's say, a foot or two in lake level by compacting that.
Well, or more than that.
Yeah, and probably more than that. I like to be on
Yeah,
the
that's conservative.
guardedly optimistic side. But that's part of the beauty of the aeration system anyway, is taking that. So instead of having to,
Well, and that's
raise
a
the
question
water.
I've had from a lot of the public is, are we just pushing sediment somewhere else?
right.
Or
And
is it
my
actually getting in the
understanding
water
is-
column and going away?
Yeah, and my understanding is with the aeration portion of it, what you're actually doing is you're liquefying
By putting the oxygen
by
in it.
putting oxygen in there, and you're coming. And I'm no scientist, but that's my understanding of the simple.
Well, that's why increasing dissolved oxygen at the sediment, water
Oh.
interface is the number one
That's the key that we're
predictor of
looking
your
for.
going to be successful, because
Yes.
the microbes start to get the aerobic microbes start to get active, and they start eating them up.
Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get all that
Yeah.
fluff, and it gets down to that more of a solid area. So anyway, that was just a little more clarification.
Well, the other thing, too, I think that, I was over at Knowles a couple of times during the past month, and then I noticed, he's had historically a feeding program for the grass carp, and his observations are the numbers are way down this year. And I saw a dead one floating, I think it was a week and a half ago. Those numbers are diminishing. And so as we change the chemistry of our lake and we get more weed growth and stuff, we really need to be aware of, as those changes start to happen, what we're going to do in order to maintain a healthy lake.
Proactive, not
Are there any reports of increased weed growth in any areas of the lake so
Not
far?
that I've received.
At least
Bill's out on the
observation.
Lake Mornay. Do you see?
Yeah, I've seen literally zero amount of grass accumulating anywhere other than in some of the more difficult canal areas.
I'm only asking because in Dr. Horn's their report, he's talked about said that the increasing grass levels will, of course, put oxygen in the water, so that might help to solve the problem. And he acted like there already were.
Well, I
he
think
didn't
he's
act like-
presuming that we
it
will have when we get
I think
oxygen.
that's my question. So, and it's a fair presumption, but he was presuming rather than actually, saying that there is increased weed growth now.
I'm pretty sure Mitch, at the last meeting that I was at, that he was here, said that he's actually, because he's got a great area to take a look at that on the point there. He didn't know what it was, but there was some stuff in that area that's starting to grow.
That he planted or that?
Well,
Oh, okay.
I can tell you that, we've fenced off close to, 150 feet or so of shoreline, and the plants that we planted last year in July, we're starting to see some coming back. But one of the things that I've noticed is that, on the rocks and stuff that are inside the fence, there's algae. They're growing on them. There's green, where you don't see that as much out in the lake itself.
Oh.
I'm just saying that that's an observation I've had. I haven't seen I honestly, it's too early to tell whether the planting in the water has taken hold or not. And because of the winter storms, I know we planted hundreds of plants, and we've and we've screened them off from the grass carp. There's been no grass carp inside the fencing, and so it'll be interesting to see how that.
Did you plant any on the other side of the fence to see?
I planted a few, but they didn't. I can't tell if anything's happening inside the fence yet. I think that as it warms up, we should be able to tell more. Certainly the plants that we've planted, the terrestrial plants on the land, have done really well, and I think it's made a difference. And so if nothing else, those have have made an impact, I believe. And so we'll just have to see if it was worth the real effort of planting in the water, because we've had some shallow areas we planted, and we've had some deeper areas we planted. I think on the plants that have survived the best are those that were, for the most part, had at least a part of them above the water, and we had extremely high water this year. So it's, I don't know, we'll just have to see.
I did notice yesterday, putting in the bridge, the dam stanchions, that there's some fairly long algae areas around the grass line on the north side of the Dee River, and I noticed that the grass carp are actually down closer to Kylo's as to the mouth of the dam area. So they're going downstream. I don't know if they're feeding on the algae or what they're doing down there, but they seem to be, they go wherever they want to find something to eat.
Right.
Whether it's algae or...
Well, and the state was out there trimming and stuff too. I wonder if there was stuff falling.
Oh, it may have been. They do like grass clippings, that's for sure.
Any additional comments from the audience? Steve?
Steve Brown. I just like, I guess I'm kind of confused on the sewer committee, some clarification. There was comment about a letter. Is the letter announcing a workshop for the public to gather to discuss beyond what the septic and sewer committee has already discussed?
Yes.
So
And
it's
there's
just an
a survey
announcement for
card.
a workshop.
And there's a survey card, too, to fill out that has, it's like a 2-question survey card. Do you think septic tank and drain field on your property will ever have to be replaced, yes or no? Question 2, would you consider replacing your septic system with a sewer if you were satisfied that sewer makes financial sense for you, yes or no? A spot for comments, questions, or advice, and then contact information.
And that's the only thing that's going to be sent to the public, other
Yeah,
than...
this letter with that survey card. And then
So
the times
what's,
and
I
dates.
guess, what's in the letter, that's what I'm trying
The
to
times
determine.
and dates of the workshop, and basically we're looking for you to get involved.
To get involved.
That's why I asked for your email address, Steve. I would have sent it to you earlier. But
Okay, great.
I got it, and I'll send it to you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Anything else from our audience? Anything, comments from the board? Remember, tomorrow we have executive session, special session, to talk with John Tucci regarding aeration, and then we have our budget committee meeting here in council chambers at noon. So we'd like any and all that would like to come and attend to attend. Thank you for coming tonight. Meeting's adjourned.
Josh, is it 10:15 or 10:30?
It's 10:30. I put 10:15 on one of the things
okay.
just to
It's
make
in
a
my
little
calendar
leeway
at
for
10:30. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't late.
the electronic situation and make sure that's going to come together.
So, Josh, I need to be there at 10:29 or 10:40.
Oh my gosh.
10:29, right? Just for you.
Tell him 10:13 if you want him there at 10:29.